Okay. Yeah. You need to put them on now. Hey, how do you like my dress? You know I did it on purpose. Well, I think it's more of a visual to make sure they also don't cut through his property. Because you'll have to understand, those people are very toxic.
You got it. All right. Good morning. This is the April 22nd Board of County Commissioners Gary Sensing Public Forum. Please turn your cell phone to the vibrate, silence, or off setting. The Gary Sensing Public Forum is intended for matters not included on the agenda for the upcoming Board of County Commissioners meeting. Citizens wishing to address items on the agenda should sign up to speak to such items at the regular Board of County Commissioners meeting. Speakers shall refrain from abusive or profane remarks, disruptive outbursts, protests, or other conduct which interferes with the orderly conduct of the Gary Sensing Public Forum. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise determined by the chairman to allow sufficient time for all speakers. And then, Board, I actually have a more civic duty than being here right now, and that's I was selected for jury duty today. But the hope is I'll be back relatively shortly after I check in with the judge, and I've got to be over there in a couple minutes. So
Gotcha.
I'm going to Commissioner Bergosh is going to handle things this morning, and hope to see everybody here shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, we will go ahead and start with our speakers. Right now, we have 4 speakers available, signed up to speak, and each speaker will get 3 minutes. We will start out this morning with Michelle Tyler. Please step forward. When you reach the podium, please restate your name, and your time will start. Good morning, and you're recognized.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Tyler. I live at 79 Monarch Lane in Oakfield Acres. I'm here representing not just myself, but my neighborhood as well, as the vice president of our neighborhood association. Recently, the Monarch Place development began developing last September, just at the end of my dead-end street. There was an appeal against this development. The appeal was unsuccessful, although many of the things that were brought forth at this appeal have become quite problematic, regardless of the fact. And there's been very little oversight by Escambia County whatsoever in terms of compliance, and it's kind of come to a head with some very recent extreme flooding events that should not be at the level at which that they are at. 5 inches of rainfall creates an 18-inch deep river. It has, in the last 4 rainfall events that we've had in the last 2 months, half of my driveway is gone. Literally, like, just gone, floats away, has washed out, cracked. My yard is gone, there's 0 yard, and I am one, but an entire street full of residents whose properties continue to just get damaged over and over again. The fire marshal's been out 3 times for violations of their burn permit. They have not complied with erosion controls, sediment controls, floodwater management. They weren't supposed to clear cut, but they did clear cut. They were only supposed to clear roadways and utilities, but they clear cut everything. A flood management pond was supposed to go in before any clear cutting, but it didn't. It's only going in now after it's become a huge issue causing damage to personal residents' properties. It's just, clear cutting began last September. And month after month after month, multiple residents, we call code enforcement, Escambia County Sheriff's Office has been out there. I mean, like, every department in Escambia County has been called and code compliance issues reported. And it's just kind of confusing how they just wake up every Monday and go back to work. And it just continues, and it's kind of like, at what point are the residents in this community protected by the county that we're constituents of, just as a whole? We love our community, and so many of us I know are here today to stand up for our community, and I just think it's important at this point that it be brought before y'all, because it is becoming a very big issue.
Does that conclude your comments?
That's what I
Thank you, Ms.
got.
Tyler. I will point out, we have spoken with the administrator on this particular topic. We've received numerous emails from your neighborhood. Janice, do you want to elaborate on what's happening at Monarch Place? I'm certain
Yeah,
that
and
Commissioner May is engaged in this as well.
And Tim and Horace are both here to explain the notices of violation and things like that we have provided. So Tim, if you want to go over that a little bit. And then I know also DEP has been engaged. We do have photos from yesterday, and I know, albeit it's very late, they are digging the ponds. And hopefully you all have been contacted by the
No, the county has followed up and made sure that our street was clear. Multiple people have reached out with the developer's information that we were given in terms of who to contact for our personal properties. I have received zero response, and as far as any of the residents in our community have reported, they still have received zero response.
Well, you're going to get some response this morning.
Okay,
Tim, would you
yep.
please get with her
Yeah,
offline?
and
then
Jeff,
Horace.
and that's my district, and we are gonna get some response, now. If it's been code enforcement reports and we've not done anything, that's problematic. Those citizens did express their concerns, and there was nothing we could do, ma'am, to stop that development, other than for compliance. And Horace, if it-
And ultimately,
okay,
Excuse me,
Excuse
let
me,
it-
ma'am.
yeah.
And Horace, give me a report on the compliance and what's happened. And Tim, I want to get the code enforcement update now.
Horace Jones, Director of Development Service Department. Yes, sir. There was some non-compliance with the approved construction plans by the developer. Staff,
So who monitored the non-compliance?
Mr. Kevin Blanchard, he's my site
So
inspector.
did he report it before the citizens reported it?
It was reported. It was reported. Yes, sir.
So what was the corrective action if it was reported?
The corrective action was for them to move towards compliance, and they were in the process of doing that. It rained again, and when it rained again, it exacerbated the non-compliance, became more exacerbated. The DEP was contacted. My inspector was out there daily. I was out there, and we are aware. We made contact with the developer, and a notice of violation was issued. It was issued. I know some people said that it wasn't. I got proof of the issuance of it. So it has been issued, and they are on a pathway to compliance. Those other things, the unpermitted, the clearing of the trees, that's on the notice, and they have to mitigate for that as well.
Horace, what does that look like? They got to plant more trees? Tim?
And Jeff, Horace, candidly, I represent those citizens, regardless, and I know how sensitive this issue is. I don't care about on a pathway to compliance. It needs to be in compliance, like now.
Yes, sir. And they are moving towards it. Yes, sir, definitely. We caught them, we notified them, and they are working towards it. They have a timeline to get everything in. Yes, sir. They're definitely moving towards it. And one of the representatives is here. If there's any questions.
Tim, do you want to give an update from your perspective? We have multiple speakers on this topic, so what that's okay. No, what I would like to ask is after you give your quick update, all those speakers here to speak on Monarch Place, Chris Kerb, Celeste Brill, Dr. Horning, please pay close attention to what they're saying. Of course, you'll be given the opportunity to speak, but then I would encourage you to get with them offline after you've spoken. Tim, you're recognized.
Thank you. So just from a code enforcement update, kind of the easy way to think of it is when it had the approval under construction plans, it falls under the site inspectors to check on compliance and help bring them there. After last week's rainfall and the developer apparently being slow to respond. Horace reached out to us to utilize code as well. We provided a notice earlier this week. The developer's been very responsive. They've come in, they've submitted for an application to work to authorize what's happened. But I would agree that they went and cleared all the lots under what they call silviculture. You know, you don't have a silviculture operation when you're developing a subdivision.
No.
You know, that's growing, you know, that's the farming of trees.
Well, I agree with my counterpart in District 3 that there needs to be consequences for this. I mean, everyone's watching. I've had this same issue happen twice in Beulah, different, very similar, but not really dissimilar. And if it's a tap on the wrist and a corrective permit after the fact, this behavior is not going to happen. It's not going to change. People are going to continue to go forward. So I agree with Commissioner May, and I'll be watching this very closely. But with that said, I appreciate the update. Please,
Yes, sir.
if you don't mind, remain available, and I'm going to call up the next speaker on this topic. Celeste Brill, please restate your name when you come to the podium, and your time will start.
I'm Celeste Brill at 101 Monarch Lane. I'm right at the curve of the street, which is due south of the main entrance of the Monarch Place subdivision. Twice now over the last 2 weeks, my whole yard has been inundated with water. Inundated, and I have been doing everything I possibly can to keep it from going underneath my house and ruining the foundation of my home. The contractor was out on Saturday after us making all these phone calls, and with Horace and Kevin out and doing an excellent job on trying to do what they can and what they're capable of doing. But I asked the contractor, what can we do? And he looked at me and he said, nothing. It's going to breach. And all this water has to go somewhere. We're already looking at feet of water on all of our property and our streets. You can't even pass through. And there's still feet worth of water on the property that is left or has yet to leave, but it's going to breach. There was nothing that he wanted to do to help us residents, to keep us safe and keep our homes protected. It was heart-wrenching to hear him say there is nothing that he is going to do, and that basically he didn't care. We're all sitting out there trying to do everything we possibly can to protect our properties, our life savings, our investments, everything that we have worked for, with shovels and rakes and finding everything that we possibly can that's laying around to create a passageway to help the water flow further south into areas that is not affected. And he just drove right on by. Horace and Kevin, they have been out. They have been wonderful. But their hands are tied. And they even said that, I wish I could help you, but my hands are tied. So my question to you guys as commissioner, Mr. May, who do I contact when we have this kind of problems? I called the sheriff's department. I called every department that I can possibly think of, and each one of them said, I don't know. Deal with it. It shouldn't be my problem to have to deal with it. In this situation, it should be the contractor who has not been in compliance to step up and provide whatever assistance, even if they had to call in their guys on the weekend, to give us the help that we need to protect our properties. That's not happening.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. Your time has expired. And as you heard earlier, we've got our staff on it, and our hands aren't tied, right? So you're going to find action from this board on your issue. Commissioner May, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I apologize for that's happening. I tell you, it's the number one priority, and we're going to have engineering and code enforcement out, and everyone's going to be held accountable.
Commissioner Underhill, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'll hold my comments to the end so the speakers have their opportunity.
All right, next up, we will have Chris Kerb. Can this be set to chairman view? Where this?
This is the chairman's view. There's like
I have a handout for you guys if I can submit this into the record.
Okay, so how do I get the speaker, how do I get? Perfect. And if I refresh it, this will be the latest and greatest?
Yeah.
Perfect, okay.
And then this other one, that's why we set this up, because it was easier to see, but it's two separate holes.
Gotcha.
Is this thing right here,
Don't want to deal with that. Just go with this. Nope. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah, and when you go to the regular meeting, we say, you want me to help? Click on the speaker, if you slide it.
Mm-hmm.
No images. It tells you here that there's speakers, if there's no speakers, it says no.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Yeah, yes, please. Yeah, what is it?
324. 0053.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. What's your name again? Okay, thanks. We don't need it. We're good. We're good. Yeah. Janice, we don't
Sorry for the delay.
We don't-
Technology.
We don't need his passcode. We're good. We don't need his passcode. Don't need him. No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I got it. We found a workaround. We're having some technical difficulties up here. Chris, do you absolutely have to have this? Because
PDF.
the time is ticking, and we've got several speakers.
Sorry about that.
No, you're
I'll
okay.
just-
We have your handout, though.
You got the handout.
Okay, can we start
No.
this 3-minute?
Okay, who am I? I'm the subject matter expert for flood defenders. We have a website. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. And our whole goal is to help flood-affected citizens advocate for better flood protection. Right now, we're at about 673 members on Facebook. Monarch Lane has raised some issues with Flood Defenders Group over significant roadway and yard flooding, sediment accumulation in the roads, and garage flooding. And I actually went out and met with them. Approved plans have been issued by the county to the developer. The plans didn't include any needs for the drainage on Monarch Lane. Of course, they don't have to because our code doesn't require us to fix existing county roads when they're going to be impacted by a new development. The county, in my opinion, has not protected the neighborhood from the problems created by this new development that's under construction. Clear cutting is prohibited by your code. Sediment erosion control is required prior to land clearing. And retention ponds are supposed to be substantially complete before construction is initiated that will increase stormwater runoff rates. None of that's been done. To address this, I believe the county needs to do 4 things. You need to invest in and equip your staff, improve your permit processes, invest in drainage improvements in the Monarch Lane neighborhood, and properly maintain the existing drainage infrastructure. Well, I just heard that there was a code violation issued, but you got an inspector out there in development services that deals with 50+ subdivisions a year, and he has no teeth. The county needs to invest in more staff and provide them with the tools to enforce the rules. Many drainage systems like Monarch Lane are not well defined or no longer exist. The county needs to improve the permit inspection process to sustain these existing drainage systems. Monarch Lane has clear need for drainage improvements, but was not included in the 2015 storm needs assessment. The county needs to plan to address drainage needs in this neighborhood. You got Carpenter's Creek master plan going on. I would suggest that you have that consultant take a look at Monarch Lane. The road department, they got dozens of vacant positions right now. The county needs to fill those positions to prevent flooding problems from getting worse.
We appreciate it. Thank you, Chris. Your time's expired. All right, next speaker. Next speaker is Tracy McAdams. Tracy, just restate your name at the podium and your time will start.
Tracy McAdams. I'm here for Galvez Landing once again. And what I would like to do, I've tried to contact, I don't know what's going on my end with my email. I can email from my phone, I can't from my computer. I would like to sit down with each and every one of you commissioners to show you the information that we have gathered, because it cannot be presented in 3 minutes or less. It's a concerted effort. Everybody that's interested in this, in stopping this project, that's not in support of it. We are in support of change, but not the change that they're proposing. So I would like to meet with each and every one of you. Some I have contacted. I don't know if you got my email, Janice, about the petition. My emails don't go through for some reason, and it's on my end, and I'm trying to work on that. But there is a petition at change.org on Galvez Landing. I would appreciate it if you could look at that. If not, of course, I'll send it to you. A couple of you have gotten it. I think Jeff, Commissioner Burgeist, you have gotten it, and Commissioner May, I believe you have gotten it. The others I haven't quite gotten to go through yet, but I'm working on that. So if you could set a time aside to spend, it won't take a long time, but I have compiled a lot of information. And another thing that I would like to bring up, this has nothing to do with Galvez Landing, is our public records request. We have put in how many new positions for almost $2 million, I believe. We've got new staff, and it's all working great. Everything's going great. But the average person does not have the funding to pay for a public records request. Okay, $350 is what I spent. I'm blessed I was able to spend that. The average person cannot afford that. We have hired new positions, so we shouldn't have to pay that labor. Yes, materials, that's completely understandable, but that's quite a bit in a labor expense when we have expanded our administration. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Good morning.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Tracy, if you'll touch base with Jonathan or Connor on the way out, I'd be happy to get you on my calendar to discuss Galvez. And with regard to the public records, I firmly believe that any of these public records should already be on the web. You shouldn't have to ask for them. You should be able to search them. The technology exists to do that, and it would save the staff an enormous amount of time and money, as well as the citizens' money, as you've already referenced. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker today is going to be Michael Lowry. Just restate your name when you hit the podium, and you'll be recognized, and you'll have 3 minutes. Oh, Dr. Horning? Okay. We should skip her. We'll have one more speaker after you, Michael.
Michael Lowry. Commissioners, as you probably noticed, I haven't been down here very much speaking at public forum. It's because I'm trying to build a relationship with management as the union rep. But today I have to come to you because I have to speak about 2 employees. The first is a 25-year employee who was an amazing employee. She caught COVID in November. And I'm emotional about this because there's a grievance filed on her behalf. She caught COVID. She was the type of employee that worked for you all the time, overtime, practically lived at the transit system and worked for you. She caught COVID, was in the hospital twice, with complications, breathing. She's on oxygen. April of this month, she received a letter, certified letter. She hasn't received it yet, but she I got a copy of the letter stating that her employment was exhausted and terminated. Morally, this is not right during a pandemic crisis to do something like this after 25 years. Management didn't even have the guts to look her in the eye, to call her in. You send her a letter. That's what we do. That's what this county's about after 25 years of service. The second employee is a 6-year veteran that filed a complaint or an incident report to management because she felt she's being sexually harassed by a passenger. Now, she hasn't reported previously because it's been going on for a while. Many of the female bus operators suffer on a regular basis being sexually harassed by passengers verbally often. It's part of the job, but sometimes they go too far. Management, 8 weeks later, after filing this report and asking for the union to be able to see the video and represent her, she didn't want to relive the video. She didn't want to watch it again. 8 weeks, no response from management. 0 response until she brought it back up and the union brought it back up. Then we have a meeting. At that meeting, I asked for one thing. Where is the written response to her incident report? She deserves a written response and conclusion and findings. It is April 22nd, and she still does not have that. In fact, management took it upon themselves to go to the individual's house who came at her and made the comments or was involved in this incident and spoke directly to the family of that individual. She finds that problematic. Now she has other people out there that she doesn't know who they are that could be coming at her.
Thank you, Mr.
This is a problem with your county.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please, you're recognized, Doug.
Mr. Lowry, you said that a lot of the female drivers deal with sexual harassment, and you said it's part of the job. No, sir, that's totally unacceptable by any stretch. They used to say that about the Navy back in the 80s. No, there is no part of any government job where sexual harassment is a part of the job. So I would say that if that is in fact happening, if any evidence is made of a rider who is behaving that way, they should be kicked off the bus for 30 days the first time, kicked off the bus for a year the second time, kicked off the bus forever the third time. That would be an appropriate way to handle that and to stop that kind of activity from happening on our buses. So, Madam Administrator, if that's what's going on, then I don't see how that would be outside of the legal parameters for us to make those kind of stipulations and put in place a process whereby a rider who sexually harasses one of our employees would then suffer the consequence, needs to suffer some consequences.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner May, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Commissioner Underhill. Mike, harassment in any form should not be accepted. And if it happens, it should be taken care of immediately. I mean, to ride the public transportation is a privilege. It's not necessarily a constitutional right by people who violate policies and harass people. So I would be very supportive of, Madam Administrator, if that's happening, to launch an investigation. We have a compliance office. I mean, if that's been reported, and Mike, I don't know if that's been reported. Tanya, I don't know if that's been reported or not. But Madam Administrator, I do have deep concerns about the employee, and I don't know if it's under investigation. I've witnessed employees die of COVID, close friends die of COVID. Through this pandemic, someone was relieved, and I don't know what the actual facts are, but Madam Administrator, if you would look into it, I'd like to know, because I'm very aware of that employee. She's served this community a long time, and from what I understand, there's no reprimands in her employee file, and that causes pause for me. If she's never been reprimanded, and she had a serious case of COVID and was relieved of her duties and not even given the opportunity to, if she couldn't drive, to be placed on other duties, which I know has happened multiple times. When someone can't perform their duties, they've been relocated to other duties or given opportunities to maintain their employment. So I would love it, Madam Administrator, if we could get some type of report on that.
I have one for you.
Oh, you do? Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Berry, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would hope that whatever that treatment was would be the same if the same occurrence had happened with any other employee throughout any other department in the county. I would hope that there's identical policies, and I hope the policies are being levied in a fair and equitable manner, regardless of where the employees work or what their job duties are. And on the other note that Mr. Lowry brought up, I presume that there's some type of process for investigating when an employee says that they're harassed by a citizen, whether it's a citizen riding a bus or a citizen at a park or something. I presume there's some type of process, and I don't know what that process is. I don't know if what Mr. Lowry said, assuming that's true, that staff went to talk to the person that was riding the bus, the alleged, perpetrator of the harassment. I don't know if that falls in line with that policy or not. I don't know, which staff is designated to do that, but if that's the way that our policy is, it would maybe be a little bit surprising if there's not a designated way to handle those types of things. But if it wasn't handled correctly, I would hope that you'd be interested enough to make sure that it is handled correctly.
Thank you. Our final speaker today will be Dr.
I'm sorry, I did want to respond
Yes.
to Commissioner Berry.
Please.
Unfortunately, we do have to do terminations based on leave without pay, and I would not say frequently, but I know that we've done at least 7 in the past couple of months. So the policy is implemented the same across the county.
Commissioner May?
And if there's equity and fairness, Madam Administrator, that's great. And if that same policy has been implemented through the pandemic, that's great. But if that's just been a standing policy in, of 20 years ago and non-pandemic, I'd like to see that analysis as well. What have we done throughout, the pandemic? And there are certain protections I would believe that someone would have if they had COVID. But I would just want you to look into it. Is it standard SOP for us to go to an employee's house? There's so many things that are being shed here that I don't think we can solve them. But I don't want to get into anybody's personnel file in a public meeting. But I can just tell you, I have deep heartburn about this employee losing their job. Although I don't hire or fire, we ultimately are responsible for policies. And so, if we could you could get with us and get back, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner May. Final speaker today, Dr. Gloria Horning. Just please restate your name and your time will begin and you're recognized.
Gloria Horning, it's been a minute. Page 1, the cover sheet for Monarch Lane says all of the water storm drains and all of that are supposed to be in place before one thing happens. One thing. Here we are again. This reminds me so much of Wedgwood, of destroying homes for what? Clear-cutting trees. Endangered turtles are on the property, took their homes away. I just don't get it. And here's the bigger picture, gentlemen. Whoever approved this must be blind. One, you have 137 new homes going in. Where will all those kids go to school? How will they get there? They're going to go through the neighborhood? When you have Oakfield Road, a road, not a street, not a drive, on the east end of this build, that's where the construction should be going in and out of, not in front of these homes, on roads that are now cracking. Where are you going to get the money to pay for that? To redo all those roads? And they're going to need sidewalks, because now you got 137 more families. And how are those kids going to get across Burgess to get to the schools? Have you thought about that? No. Apparently haven't. You've got diesel trucks going through these homes, through these streets. We know the impact of diesel fume on children. And this is a child-raising neighborhood. And once again, environmental impacts on the people who have been there are on the backs of builders. And working on Sunday. I don't want to hear there are gonna be citations. Stop them. Are we going to end up buying this parcel just like we did Rolling Hills? We didn't buy it. We got to clean it up. Millions of our tax dollars. But South Palafox Properties gets to keep it. Is that where we're going to end up again? Look at the entire picture. This is environmental injustice. I just can't imagine. Zero silt fencing went up. There was none until a couple of weeks ago. This is horrendous. And if you can't get your staff on it, find some staff that can get on it.
Thank you, Dr. Horning. That completes our speakers. So our public,
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Commissioner Underhill.
Thank you very much. If ever there was a pattern of behavior and a pattern of facts that warranted the rescinding of a development order, this is it. The after-the-fact stuff, we've harmed citizens. We've harmed citizens because our process is designed to get to yes. Our processes are not designed to get to what is right. When I took over in this job, we used to have these big 3-inch binders that we had all our paper in, and pasted into the inside of that binder, it said, our job is to get to yes. Our job has to stop being getting to yes. Our job has to be getting to right. It's not right for us to be continuing to approve these neighborhoods knowing full well, and the problem with the process is that at the BOA, at the planning board, everywhere you go, the burden of proof is supposed to be on the person making the request. And we don't hold them accountable to that burden of proof. Every single one of those boards, there's no real rigor that goes into that burden of proof. And that's what's causing this to happen. It's not just happening there, it's happening all over the county. I will say that this is the worst one. And it gets worse and worse all the time. And we say the same things from up here on the dais, and it's not changing. It's got to change at the front end. What we refer to in cyber as left of boom. We have to solve the problem to the left of the timeline where the actual crisis occurs. We just aren't doing that, and until we change our processes here, they're not going to change. And Gloria, I'm going to go ahead and mention, you're right, it's a lot like Wedgwood. Okay? I got sued for trying to go after those guys because they got rich, they took the money out of Wedgwood, they prostituted Wedgwood, they got rich, and they never got held accountable for it. I believe we could absolutely pierce that corporate veil. We can go after the money that they took out of Wedgwood, get that money, and maybe, just maybe, get some of that money back to the people of Wedgwood who got hurt by that. Unfortunately, I got sued for it. I won that lawsuit, still haven't been paid back for it, but I will be. But we need to keep going after it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Seeing none, we're adjourned. We will convene our 9 o'clock meeting at 10 minutes after 9. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start this meeting in about 1 minute. Please take your seats. Thank you. Good morning. Board of County Commissioners, regular meeting, April 22nd, 2021, 9:14 a.m. Please turn your cell phones to the vibrate, silence, or off setting. The Board of County Commissioners allows any person to speak regarding an item on the agenda. The speaker is limited to 3 minutes, unless otherwise determined by the chairman to allow sufficient time for all speakers. Speakers shall refrain from abusive or profane remarks, disruptive outbursts, protests, or other behavior which interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Upon completion of the public comment period, discussion is limited to board members and questions raised by the board. This morning I'll be giving the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Please join me in standing. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, you are welcome here. Thank you for another beautiful day. Thank you for this great nation. Thank you for the blessings that you bestow upon this great nation. As we begin this meeting today, I ask for your guidance and wisdom to be inferred on each and every member of this board. Furthermore, I kindly ask for your continued blessings on our nation as we fight the pandemic, as we fight multiple issues of divisiveness throughout our country. Put your arms around this nation. Wrap your arms around us all. Bring us closer together. I ask these and all things in Jesus' name. Amen. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. And again, Commissioner Bender is serving on jury duty, otherwise he would be here. So as Vice Chairman, I will run this meeting today until he gets back or until we complete the meeting. Are there any items to be added to the agenda? Madam Attorney.
No, sir.
Commissioner Berry? None.
Commissioner May.
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Underhill.
None. And Mr. Chairman, I do hope we finish before he finishes the jury duty. We
Well,
got to be faster than that.
I have a feeling we will.
No, hats off to him for doing his public service.
Absolutely. Madam Administrator, your additions and changes? Okay. All right. I would entertain a motion on the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote. We'll see if this works.
That's not, we should be moving,
Yeah, for the,
well, what it says here, are there
Adopt
any
the
items
agenda
to be
as
added to
prepared.
the agenda? The motion should be to adopt the agenda as
that's exactly
presented.
what the motion was. That's what I
Okay.
requested. Yeah.
Just checking with them, because that's not what it says on the screen there.
Yeah, the motion, the chair would accept a motion that the board adopt the agenda as prepared. Was that your motion, Commissioner May? Okay, all right. Very good. Commissioners Forum. Commissioner Berry, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
I don't have anything for the good of the
never
whole.
got it.
Thank you.
we all voted. All right, gentlemen, if you're in favor of approving the agenda, raise your right hand. Okay, it's unanimously passes. Okay, Commissioners Forum, Commissioner Berry.
I don't have anything for the good of the whole. As we get into the agenda, I do have some comments that might go a little bit off the agenda, but I'll save comments for then.
Yes, sir. Sounds good. Commissioner May, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll be very brief. I just want to, send my condolences and prayers to the family of Marilyn Wesley. Marilyn worked for the county 30-plus years and was currently serving as the interim director of human relations, and she lost her life to COVID, and I know many of the employees, older employees, know Marilyn. I think the family will have a family hour on Friday. And as well as her committal, I think will be right around 1 o'clock at the Family Christian Funeral Home on Davis Highway on Saturday. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner May. Commissioner Underhill, you're recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the time. I want to bring y'all's attention to House Bill 53 and Senate Bill 1076. These bills have, it's a House and Senate companion bills. They've made it through their committees and subcommittees, and looks like they're both going to the floor with a very good possibility of getting turned into law. These bills will have the effect of denying state funding to any municipality or county that has a local preference. And I've been talking for quite a while about how local preference ordinances are rife for causing costs to go up. They're ripe for causing favoritism in the procurement process, and they're really not appropriate. And it's true that at this point, Tallahassee appears to see that has become a problem statewide. I believe Bay County rescinded their local preference ordinance just this week. If this becomes law, which it has a very good chance that it will, then counties like Escambia that have a local preference ordinance in our procurement will be cut out of state funding. So again, that's House Bill 53, Senate Bill 1076. Just wanted to bring that to your attention in case you hadn't seen that happening in Tallahassee. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Underhill. And are those bills identical or similar?
Similar enough to make it through the reconciliation process, yeah. The House bill is a companion bill to the Senate bill, which was where it initiated.
And the funding at issue that would be at stake if we didn't do it, are you saying that that's all the funding that we would?
Well, anything that's, the way that it reads is that any project that receives any portion of its funding through state allocation or through state appropriation would not be eligible for that state funding. Of course, it's been, it's a lot of red ink on it right now as it's gone through all of its different iterations. So probably better, I just wanted to bring it to your attention so everybody has a chance to read it instead of doing a whole lot of editorializing on it. But like I said, everything that I see, hearing from Tallahassee says this thing is going to go, this will become law this year.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Berry.
Even if that were to happen, that language already exists in federal funding, so I think we can navigate it.
Right on. Thank you, Commissioner Berry, for that clarification. All right, for my part, I want to thank Joy Jones, the engineering department. We've had several meetings over the last 2 weeks on a number of different projects that are in District 1, and I just appreciate the timeliness of the responses. And I know the residents, at least in a couple of these projects, are very grateful for the answers and the clear guidelines and timelines that you provided, so greatly appreciate that. Also want to thank Eric Gilmore and Escambia County Fire Rescue. He's been putting out a public safety report, sending it out to us. It's very interesting to go through the different calls per week. And one of the issues that he highlighted in last week's report dealt with a young man who lives in District 1 in one of the subdivisions out in Beulah and had a significant medical condition, and his parents, this young citizen's parents, wrote a letter of thanks and appreciation to the Escambia County Fire Rescue for what they did to help cheer him up. So I think these are the little things that happen in the county that never get noticed, they never get pressed, but there's a lot of great people working in this county, doing great things every day. So I thank Director Gilmore for putting that out. That way we have eyes on it. So thank you for that. And yeah, so with that, Madam Administrator, anything
Yeah,
from you?
the only thing I wanted to mention that I know that we mention frequently are just the continued number of vacancies at the county.
Yes, ma'am.
As I've mentioned to each of you, every business owner that I speak with, everyone is having the same issue. And the inflation in the positions is also what's a grave concern to myself and your directors, is that we've had people leave jobs from the county to go take a $20,000 increase in a job that previously you wouldn't have seen that type of delta. We had one nurse that left us from jail medical for $20 an hour more. We're hearing that our EMS is going to have to compete with potentially as much as $5 an hour more from our local competitors. So I only share that with you to share that, as you all know, we do have a lot of vacancies. We're not alone. The entire country is experiencing the same thing. But, we are trying to find some ways, Commissioner Berry and each of you have mentioned, trying to find ways to do sign-on bonuses to recruit folks.
Yep.
But, we also have to find ways to support the employees that we currently have so we don't continue to lose them as well.
Yep. Commissioner Berry, you recognized? Oh, okay. Yeah, and that was a great conversation that we had, Madam Administrator, and I agree with you, and we all see the issues in certain departments in particular, but, before we move forward, just to make a quick statement on it, when you print trillions of dollars and insert it into the economy, there will be inflation, and what we're seeing is wage inflation. People do not roll off the couch for less than $15 an hour. Fast food restaurants the names of are not able to open because they can't get people to come and work for 10 or 12 bucks. So gas has increased 65%, just in the last year. So, if you're saying there's no inflation, then you've got your head in the sand like an ostrich. And I don't care what your title is. I don't care what bureaucracy you work for, because those of us who live in real life, we see it, and this is the latest manifestation of it. We've got career jobs with excellent pay and benefits, pensions, which are unheard of, and we can't get people to roll off the bat. We've got people saying, call me back in October when the unemployment runs out. When you print trillions of dollars out of thin air, inflation happens, and that's what's happening. Of course, we have no control over that locally. The only thing we have control of is what we say, and what I say is, if you decide to start measuring inflation by only measuring certain things that are not going up, like the cost of salt or weird things like that, yeah, you can find no inflation. But in real life that we live in, inflation is happening, and it's because the federal government is printing money, and it's hurting us. It's helping some people, it's hurting us.
Commissioner, I could not agree with you anymore. I mean, you're dead right. And the funny thing that there's nothing funny about it. Employers from the lowest level employment to the high-tech cyber jobs on Corey, everybody's hurting. Everybody's hurting, and what they're hurting for is employees.
Employees.
People to do the work. So, I think every citizen should recognize that you are a stockholder in a $500 million corporation called Escambia County, and that corporation has about 1,700 employees. And the costs of doing business of the government are skyrocketing right now.
Skyrocketing. Yeah, absolutely. So anyone that says there's no inflation on whatever Sunday show or CNBC, they're lying to you, right? All right, I guess I better stop editorializing before I get in trouble. We'll go ahead and move forward into the proclamations.
Move the proclamations.
We got a motion and a second on the proclamations. Please vote. Everyone vote? Okay, all right. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Bender off the dais.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I received word today from Superintendent Eccles that he was called into a meeting with the Assistant Secretary of Department of Interior. I'm pretty sure that trumps us, so he will not be here to receive the proclamation. And Ms. Dana Pagador from the Chamber had a personal issue that came up this morning. So I would like to give the proclamation that we just approved for the Rosamond Johnson, that we'll present that proclamation at the Rosamond Johnson Day event at Perdido Key.
Okay, very good. So item B, we've already approved it, and Doug will give that on his own privately.
I'll be there, Doug, too.
Outstanding.
And item number C is going to be the Family Values Week. Who's going to, okay, Commissioner Berry will present that one. I've been asked to present the first one in Commissioner Bender's absence, and I'm proud and happy to do so. Sarah LaFevers, are you in the audience? Okay, please step forward to the podium, and I'll walk around and we'll go ahead and do the Sexual Assault Awareness Month proclamation.
And Sarah, I look forward to meeting with you next week, but thank you for taking this on. It's a big mission that you're taking on. If you want to just tell people kind of what you're doing while he's walking around, that'd be great.
So my name is Sarah Lefevers, and most of you know me with my role with the Chamber and other community organizations, but I'm here to proudly represent the NICI Project, which is the Network of Immediate Services for Survivors International. I've recently taken over as president and CEO, and although they're a global anti-trafficking organization, we've seen a need to assist survivors with immediate services from the time that they're rescued to the time that they arrive at an aftercare facility. Of the 40 million who are trafficked around the world, it's estimated that less than 1% actually are rescued. And of that 1%, most return either to their trafficker, resort to survival sex, or do not survive because of all the physical trauma that they endure post 7 years post their rescue. And so we believe that the majority of those reasons result to the fact that they don't know how to access the right services, whether it's healthcare or long-term aftercare solutions. So we are establishing a respite facility, short-term immediate care facilities, so it'll be 1 to 7 days, where survivors can go upon rescue or identification and get those immediate services. So we're working strategically with law enforcement and healthcare providers to be able to provide those needs, and also our global network of aftercare services, and then we'll transport them to whatever aftercare service fits their individual needs, and hopefully will have a successful outcome.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because of I-10, unfortunately, I think we'll have a lot of activity for you and your group.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
thank you for that work.
Absolutely.
That's amazing work.
And our first facility will be here in Pensacola, actually in District 4, so we're very excited. Thank you.
All right, I'll go ahead and read this proclamation on behalf of Commissioner Bender and the board. Whereas April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and this year's theme is creating safe spaces for all communities. And whereas sexual assault is a devastating abuse of power, one that affects people of every age, race, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, national origin, socioeconomic background, and religion. And whereas rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment have extensive and widespread physical and mental health implications, including post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse, depression, homelessness, eating disorders, and suicide. And whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that 43.2% of females and 51.3% of males first experienced victimization prior to 18, and whereas through prevention, education, awareness efforts, a strong continuum of victim services, and holding perpetrators responsible for their actions, we can work together to better address sexual violence and create a safer community. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners of Escambia County, Florida hereby proclaims April 2021 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month and encourages all citizens, parents, governmental agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, hospitals, schools, and colleges to join together and raise awareness about sexual assault, provide support for survivors, and strive to achieve a county where sexual assault victims have a path to justice and where our families and children will be protected. Board of County Commissioners, Escambia County, Florida, Robert Bender, Chairman, District 4, Jeff Bergosh, Vice Chairman, District 1, Douglas Underhill, District 2, Lumen J. May, District 3, Stephen Berry, District 5. Thank you, Sarah, for the work you're doing. All right, Commissioner Berry, you're recognized.
Nice to see you, my friend.
Jim Salisbury.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in recognition of the Scottish Rites work with family values, I want to have this proclamation. Whereas the Supreme Council, 33rd Degree, Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Southern Jurisdiction, USA, adopted a new year-round family development program. The program focuses on the basic values of love, kindness, and respect for the benefit of youth and adult family members. And there are over 15,000 Masons in the surrounding area who promote the message of tolerance, dignity, and progress. The Masons contribute their services to numerous charitable organizations throughout the year. The Scottish Rite Masons, Valley of Pensacola, are sponsoring a celebration of family values during the first week of May 2021. Now therefore be it proclaimed, the Board of County Commissioners of Escambia County, Florida hereby proclaims the week May 2nd through May 8th, 2021 as Family Values Week. and Escambia County and honors and commends the Scottish Rite Masons, Valley of Pensacola, for their leadership, dedication, and service to the community. Escambia County Board of County Commissioners, Robert Bender, Chairman, Jeff Burgash, Vice Chairman, District 1, Douglas Underhill, District 2, Lumen May, District 3, Stephen Berry, District 5. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. You do? Thank you. I have to admit,
Yeah, please walk to the microphone so we can capture your comments. You're on the hook now.
I'm on the hook. I have to admit, when I received the email.
You got to talk in the mic, man.
Oh, do I?
Yeah.
Okay. I got a big mouth. I used to be I'm a retired Navy chief, so that gives me, I got a big mouth. But when I received the email and I saw Sam, I made an assumption. And we all know what that word means, but I had the opportunity to speak with her the other day. I want to thank you, and I want to thank the county commissioners. One of the things that we are proud of, very much so here at the Scottish Rite in Pensacola, is our sponsorship of the speech and language disorder clinics at Baptist. And we're hoping that when they finish their whole new thing over there off Brent Lane, that those things shift into newer areas and that more people are aware that when a family member has a child or even an adult that has these issues, they can go there to that clinic, and through our sponsorship, it's no cost bore to them. So again, on behalf of the brothers and the ladies of this Pensacola Scottish Rite, I'd like to thank you.
Thank you, sir, for being here. Thank you. All right, gentlemen, we're going to move forward now. Did the clerk's office receive the proofs of publication for the public hearings on the agenda and the board's weekly meeting schedule?
Mr. Vice Chairman, the clerk's office has received all proofs.
Chair would
Move to
entertain-
waive the reading.
Motion? We don't have a quorum. We've lost a quorum. What happened? Ladies and gentlemen, just bear with us for a moment. We've temporarily lost our quorum. All right. Looks like all right. Commissioner May, I have a motion on the floor to waive the reading. Okay, we have a motion and a second to waive the reading. Please vote. Item passes 3-0 with Commissioner Bender and Commissioner Underhill off the dais. Okay, moving forward now, we will move into the public hearing, the 9:01 a.m. public hearing to consider creating an ordinance regarding Medicaid, that the board adopt and authorize the chairman to sign the ordinance creating Volume 1, Chapter 90, Article 10, Sections 90 through 311 through 9329 of the Escambia County Code of Ordinance related to Medicaid.
Any speakers on the item?
Do we have no speakers on this item? Are we, Madam Attorney, are we obligated to do anything other than vote this up or down?
No, unless there's anyone who wishes to speak.
Anyone here wishing to speak? Chair would entertain a motion.
Move the item as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please vote. Or those not in favor. The 901 passes with Commissioner Bender off the dais 4-0. All right, moving forward now to the clerk and comptroller's report. Madam Clerk, you are recognized.
Thank you. Yes, sir. I have two items on the consent agenda. One is the approval of the acceptance of the TDT collection data that is collected in February. We report on in March. Please know that there has been about a little over a 4% decrease to that. We're going to keep you posted to see if this is a trend or what have you. However, comparative year to year is still positive by 9%. We'll keep you updated. The other one is just a recommendation for minutes and reports that we prepare. Thank you.
Move that we accept the clerk's report as presented.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Please vote. Item passes 4-0 with Commissioner Bender off the dais. All right, moving forward now, growth management report. Horace Jones, you recognized?
Yes, sir. Thank you. We have the growth management report, the 915. This is to review and adopt the 5-year scheduled capital improvement plan.
Any
Okay.
speakers?
We have one speaker on GMR 11, and that speaker is, hang on, I'll find out right now. Chris Kerb. Chris Kerb, you're recognized.
I've got another handout here for you guys.
Chris, are you going to do anything with the computer on this, or is this a handout?
Your technology here doesn't work.
It could be operator error.
No, it's a PDF. You click on a PDF,
Never-
it should open up.
never
So, I
happened.
mean, really.
Never rule out that possibility. Wow, you got an attack.
You need to
What is this?
invest in a better computer right here. Sorry, I digress. 3 minutes, wow. Gary Sansing, if he were here today, he would probably tell you 3 minutes is not enough to talk.
He
Enough
would.
time for people to tell you what's up. So, but the 5-year capital improvement plan, there's a lot of unfunded drainage needs. I'm here with Flood Defenders. You're going to be hearing this quite a bit and more board meetings, because that's what we're about, is to let you guys know that you need to spend more money on flood protection. The plan that you have on this 5-year capital improvement plan is actually based off a 2015 SWAT drainage needs assessment, which originally had 228 drainage projects for a $417 million price tag. This list has grown since 2015. I've actually attached you an updated list there that I provided. I've also emailed that to your CMR department. Today, there's a backlog of 258 projects. Since April 2015, only 15 of those projects have been completed. 37 of them are in design. We need to fund more drainage projects to protect county residents from flooding. The funding is available. If we prioritize this, we can use Restore, what's left over in LOST 3, LOST 4, and there's lots of other funding opportunities that are out there. Monarch Lane needs to be added to this list. Current funding levels are at $4 million per year under local option sales tax. The drainage needs that means that it would take more than 100 years to complete the list that was done in 2015. I hope y'all are okay with that, because I'm not. I know the citizens in Escambia County are not. To complete these outstanding projects that have already been committed to protect citizens from flooding. Commissioner, you mentioned inflation earlier. Well, that cost of $417 million was back in 2015. Inflation's going to bring that up, so it's going to take more than 100 years to complete the drainage list. A plan that was provided by the SWAT, I only got 14 seconds left.
10.
10. Y'all seen the SWAT. A couple of you guys weren't here when the SWAT was done. It's on your website. There's a lot of good stuff on the SWAT, so I'd take a look at it.
Thank you, Chris. We appreciate you being here. Appreciate your comments.
Yes, sir.
Don't necessarily disagree with you, but I would say one thing. There's a thing called deferred maintenance. Even the federal government that prints money has it on their federal installations, federal properties, and we're constantly in triage mode. There will never, ever be enough revenue to do everything you want us to do, the citizens want us to do, we want to do. And so, no, I don't need anything from you. I'm just making a point. There will never be enough revenue for us to do everything we want to do. That's why we're elected, to make the priorities. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Commissioner Barry, you're recognized.
I was going to move to 9:15.
Second for discussion.
Motion and second, discussion. Doug, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. Yeah, there's no question that we're grossly underfunding stormwater in Escambia County. The capital improvement project, as it's in front, or plan that's in front of us now, has to be cohesive with our current budgeting. Okay, So the right time to put in the capital improvement plan, a bunch of things that we're not going to budget for would be dishonest. So this CIP reflects the budget priorities of the last budget cycle. As we move into the next budget cycle, roads and stormwater, roads and stormwater, roads and stormwater. It's just really that simple. If no matter what else we say during the course of the year, if during the budget cycle we don't put more dollars to it, then everything before the but doesn't matter. So that's the time that we really need to address what percentage of the wealth of this county should be going to that. Now, I also want to speak to that restore money. That restore money is worth less now than the day it was awarded because of the inflation that was just discussed.
Absolutely.
That restore money is sitting at rest. That restore money should have been into projects in our districts, in our neighborhoods, long before now. By the time we spend that money, the people most affected by restore will probably have passed on. So, by the BP oil spill. So that money at rest is losing value every day, and the projects that it should be doing in our community are left undone. So good point bringing that up, Mr. Kerb, and hopefully we should see that advance our discussion with regard to the use of restore money. No further comments needed.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a motion and a second on the 915. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. The 915 passes 4-0 with Commissioner Bender off the dais. Horace, you recognize?
The next, we have two action items. A Kirkwood final plat to review and approve. for adoption.
So moved, item A through D.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second on item 1A through D. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. GMR item 1 passes 4-0 with Commissioner Bender off the dais.
Then we have the stagecoach final plat.
No speakers on that item?
Mr. Chairman, I realize that's in District 1. I'm happy to move it, item A through C.
Yep. Okay, we have a motion and a second. I appreciate that, Commissioner Berry. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, please vote. Item 2 passes 4-0 with Commissioner Bender off the dais. Before we move forward, I will say that is in District 1. It is on Mobile Highway. It is an area of, a lot of tremendous growth. I will say I had a meeting with the district secretary, Phil Gaynor, and the project on Mobile Highway from Blue Angel to Highway 90 is moving forward. It is being designed right now. Tremendous safety improvements, repaving all the way through. We're going to have a brand-new stoplight at Klondike where we've had a number of accidents. So to the residents out there, I would just say a lot of improvements are coming. And also on that, I would note Mobile Highway near Beulah Elementary School has experienced a lot of road pitting. And I want to give kudos to staff, even though it's a state road. They went out and immediately addressed my understanding, they went out and addressed it, the immediate need, and also notified the state. So appreciate staff quickly looking into that. And Commissioner Bender, welcome back. All right. Moving forward, we will move to the county administrator's report.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Hey, the 901 issue on Medicaid, that was a whole lot of reading and a very short item. It's actually a really good news item in terms of bringing a better understanding of how to, working out between the hospitals and the government, how to properly bring Medicaid dollars into town. I would like to ask that the administrator direct CMR to put that into something that they can put out. It's a whole bunch of wonkiness, and for those of us that are into that wonkiness stuff, we'll read a whole lot, but I'd really think that it would be good for the public to know what the 901 was all about and what the benefit to Escambia County is. Ms. Janice, is that something you could do? Yes, sir. Thank you.
You want me to keep rolling? Robert, are you ready to rock?
Go ahead.
Okay. All right, we're going to move forward now. We're going to county administrator's report. Janice, you're recognized.
How would you wish your pleasure?
Gentlemen, is there any that need to be pulled? We have one speaker on budget and finance, but not on the CAR 1, so
I'm good with it, Jeff.
is there any, let me just put it this way.
Car one, not necessarily. Car two, I wouldn't go that fast.
Okay, so I'm not hearing, is there anything?
Move the technical public service consent agenda as presented.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. All right, CAR 1 passes unanimously. CAR 2, Budget and Finance. Commissioner Bender, you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, you got it.
Okay, so I heard, do we just want to go item by item, or?
You got a speaker on
Six, perfect.
I don't know that item by item is necessary for me, Mr. Chairman, but I do want to hold, let me see. I do want to hold item 12, and let me look and see if there's another one.
Anybody like to hold anything else?
I think Commissioner Berry's still looking for another one.
Okay.
So we're at 6 and 12 right now.
We're
is
at
the
6 and 12 right now.
Mr. Chairman.
Hold 14 too.
Hold 14.
14,
Hold 16 for a separate vote.
16.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Move the balance in the affirmative.
Sorry, I hadn't heard anything else on 21 for the longleaf design.
No,
Did everything work out with those?
it's ready to roll.
Okay.
Rock and roll.
Because we had held that last time, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I took care of it last week,
Okay,
the last 2
great.
weeks. And that's why I thanked staff profusely for their time. And
Okay.
so I'll second Doug's motion.
So it's, we're holding 6, 12, 14, and 16. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Item 6, speaker is Chris Kerb. This is concerning the purchase of multiple pieces of equipment for public works.
Hello again. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. And thank you for investing appropriately in resources for the road department as far as equipment, so they can repair and maintain existing drainage improvements and other infrastructure. There's still a little bit more work to do. Public Works Department is 26 people down as far as vacant positions, and that's pretty much a staffing crisis. Janice, I heard you say earlier that that's something y'all need to tackle. There's a problem with the pay scale. The county's done several pay scale studies over the years, and it's getting worse with inflation, as you said, Commissioner Burgash. But filling these roles will help provide better flood protection for about 7,000 people that's reported drainage problems in Escambia County. That's a lot of people. Levying these unfilled positions makes the maintenance backlog grow, or leaving them unfilled, and makes flood problems in the county even worse. You mentioned public records earlier, Commissioner Underhill. I didn't get to say it earlier because these 3 minutes are really tedious to try to tell you everything I'd like to say, because I love to talk. But back on your 5-year plan earlier, HMGP program requires that you have projects listed that so when it's ranked, that you have those projects listed when you apply for them for FDM. I know y'all have got a list of HMGP projects that you're planning on bringing up.
Hey, Chris, I'm sorry, but we do need to stick to the topic. I know you like to talk, and I support what you're doing, but.
It's all about flooding.
Okay, thank you.
Any other speakers?
No, sir.
Move the item in the affirmative.
Second.
Please vote.
Mr. Chairman, I want to congratulate Wes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot, I mean, it's a lot of
Yes.
good stuff. I mean, it's clearly needed, clearly needed, but it is a lot of good stuff. And hopefully between this and maybe some incentive hiring that I've, been promised is going to be on the agenda in a couple weeks, maybe we'll be able to kind of make a dent in some of those, in some of those vacancies as well.
I've discussed with them a plan for some dump trucks. I know that there's a shortage nationwide on that type of equipment, and hopefully we can capitalize on that a little bit, but also improve our fleet. So appreciate the way they've handled this. So thank you, Commissioner Berry, and that motion did pass 5-0. Item 12 was held. Commissioner Berry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And specifically, I could have candidly picked any item that was a change order. So that wasn't necessarily about this. I did talk to Janice about the other day, and was explained to me that this change order, this increase in change order, is being paired with some deductive change orders that we're not spending. And we had the 3 zones for the cleanup. 2 of the zones, it looks like we're going to be under budget, and with this one, we're having to do increasive additive change orders too. So maybe that I don't know if it will even out, but maybe to some degree. But Cassie, if you don't mind, we'll talk about change orders. Hey, Mr. Chairman, I did waive my time during Commissioners Forum to maybe talk a little bit this morning, with my colleagues' indulgence. And, forgive us for having to have the discussion out here, but there was an email that I was a bit concerned about last week, and I know that Dawn sent a question on Monday, wasn't responded to, so we sent another question yesterday, which wasn't responded to, so we get the luxury to discuss it here. Sure. So what change orders are you referring to that aren't coming to the board? That's what I need an explanation of.
Great. So Dawn and I did speak this morning about that, and I told her that I would send her a link to the policy, which for projects or just general purchases, and we actually, Wes and Jamie, we all went through the discussion this morning. If there's an administrative change order, such as a cost center change, or if there was an item that needed to be moved to a capital expense through the clerk's office, when they look at it and say that it needs to move to those expenses, then we would do such. And I can absolutely provide that policy.
Okay, I don't really need a narrative to the policy. I need to know that the policy is being implemented accurately.
Yes, sir.
Frankly, your response to a question last week when it said, it referred to the change orders that come to the board versus those that don't. My understanding of the policy is anything that the board votes on that has a change order is going to come back to the board, whether it has money attached to it or not, whether it's administrative or not. Are you saying that policy is different?
No, we have many change orders that don't come before the board, or purchase orders that don't come before the board that are less than $25,000.
I understand that. That's not that's not what I asked, Cassie. I understand the threshold policy. My question is, when the board awards contracts, changes to those POs, they do come to the board. That's why we see non-financial change orders, especially as they relate to time and other administrative functions. If it's a clerical function, that's not administrative. That's a clerical something. Okay, I get that. That's a scrivener's error or clerical. Administrative would involve anything to do with time, and it would certainly, additive change orders, certainly involving money, would involve something coming to the board. So, but I digressed. When I saw your email, it made me just decide that I would take a little bit of time and thumb through some purchase orders. And unfortunately, I stumbled upon a couple of purchase orders that did come to the board for the board to award. There were change orders that were additive financially that didn't come back to the board. How would you think that happened?
So if there is a change order that is, and I may have to ask staff the exact number, that's why I would appreciate to review the policy with you, that I hate to cite a specific number, and I can go over those individually with you if you would like.
I don't think that there's a percentage threshold that the financial change orders don't come back to the board when we award a contract. I mean, okay, so, I mean, that's not going to be a complete enough answer.
Okay, certainly. Thank you. So any change at all to a contract you want to come back before the board? Is that what?
Is it, I mean, I've been on the board over 8 years. It's always been my understanding, if the board awards a contract and there's an additive change order, that change order is going to come back to the board. Are you saying that's not the policy?
No, sir, that's not the policy.
Okay, what is the policy then?
Wes, do you have an answer for that?
Commissioner, I believe it's 10% or $50,000, whichever is greater.
Thank you.
Okay. So even in those thresholds, we still had a purchase order that was awarded by the board in November or December that had a 30%, between 25 and 30% additive change order put on that didn't come back to the board. It was still signed off on by administration, and it was paid out by Madam Clerk, or was approved, which with the, with the sign-offs that went with the backup, that's certainly not her responsibility to manage the county's business. But it is a problem, which I would not have happened upon if your email hadn't referenced things that didn't come back to the board. So, I would be of the opinion, if we have administrative change orders that come back to us that have no financial impact, I would like to see the purchase orders that have additive dollars added to them as well. I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable.
Are you saying above the 50,000 or above the 10%?
What I'm saying, anything the board votes on should come back to the board if it's got an additive change order. Okay. The story behind the couple of issues that I'm talking about, these were relatively small contracts in the county procurement method. They were competitively, there was at least 2 respondents to the bid, and we awarded the bid. Then there was a change order given that certainly put the winning bidder well over what the other bidder would have been if they had been granted the change order, but the board didn't see the change order. That's not a transparent and, in my opinion, a fair process when, perhaps that's one reason we have, if I hear from people we have a difficulty getting people to respond to bids, maybe that's why. Maybe there's a feeling, I did respond, I was, $1,000 high, but then the winning bidder on a $50,000 bid got a $13,000 change order. Maybe the $13,000 change order is very warranted. I don't know. I'm not a contractor, but I know it should come, in my opinion, it should come back to the board, and that's well over 10%. It's also, so the thresholds certainly should have been met. I only spent a couple hours looking through this stuff. It's not my job to look through, every purchase order the county issues, but it is very concerning when you come across things that don't look like the policy has been followed. I'll get with you after the meeting and walk through what it is and where it came from. But Madam Administrator, I am very concerned about directors, assistant administrators, and administration signing off on things that clearly met that threshold, even that threshold that she gave the narrative to, that didn't come to the board.
Okay.
And Steve, we've had this discussion, it might have predated, current administration and staff. And I think that discussion was years ago, and I kind of was of the same thought, and my ignorance for not reviewing the policy more frequently, but there were people who were low bidding but getting change orders that ended up being more than the high bid is the reason we had that conversation some years back. So I'm supportive too of, not $50,000 of those change orders coming back before the board, because that was a complaint that we got from vendors and contractors that because some people can estimate and manipulate on the front end and then come on the back end with change orders. They are able to somewhat cost the taxpayers more money. So, Madam Administrator, I would be supportive of bringing those back.
Yeah, we're more than happy to do that. I do know that we look at every single purchase order, every single change order. We have a pretty stringent process. That's why we have so many folks signing off. So I guess the math needs to happen probably sooner rather than later, in terms of when those change orders have that impact. Because I do know that we're very, very careful to make sure that nothing that starts out under 25 doesn't come to the board if it goes over 25. I know there's several policies that we're making sure, that we're adhering to those. And so I'm sorry if there have been some that have happened that did not meet that other threshold that you're talking about.
And it's concerning when you have multiple people in leadership signing off on it, saying it does meet it.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Okay.
I can tell you this, though, it's not for trying to hide anything from you. That is not our intent at all.
That's not the implied intent. The implied intent is effective public service, and that's my concern. When you have multiple people signing off on something that doesn't meet a policy, that's concerning, and it does make you wonder.
I guess as we start talking about policies, Madam Attorney, I guess our current policy is still $50,000, but we've been operating under the 25 for a year and a half, 2 years now, so.
At some point, the ordinance itself needs to be addressed, and we talked about this, but it's been a little while. So if the board wants to lower the limit, we can certainly come back to you with an ordinance amendment at the 25. But I think if the board has indicated it wants to see everything at 25, the change orders flowing from that, it makes sense that the board is also wanting to see those.
But if we've been operating at 25,000, why wouldn't we have the policy of the ordinance to reflect how we've been operating?
Because we never updated it.
We
Right, I understand that.
Right.
I'm saying we're
And that's what
operating
I'm
that
asking.
way anyway, well, why don't we have it in
Do
writing?
we want to add
The
this
board-
to,
Yeah, the
future
board-
meeting so that we can address it properly?
Absolutely. The board indicated it wanted a trial period, and
Well, maybe we put
did
it on
say
the
at
calendar,
some point
discuss it,
it would take an ordinance change to lower the limit for the board approval to 25 to.
Okay.
We have an administrator authorization in the ordinance says 50, but the board said, hey, we want to start looking at everything 25 or more. So you guys have.
Well,
been-
you can't hold the administrator accountable for something we just said if it's not the ordinance. Why don't we put it in writing?
Absolutely, waiting for that.
Well, today's the day then. Start.
Bring it back May 6th. It doesn't need to go to the committee of the whole. We've been operating under a $25,000 threshold. Let's just
Well, that's fine with me.
codify it.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
All right, thank you.
I don't have a problem with that.
Commissioner Underhill?
So the reason it's not is because we haven't done it yet. It really is on the five of us to create policy. So I would say that I think that what we're hearing here is that our next regularly scheduled meeting needs to be an update to that policy that reflects this discussion. Is that how you're hearing that, Madam Administrator? Okay. I think that our threshold of 50,000 is appropriate for in order to get things done at the speed of business. The major issue that we've had in past years was opening up contracts and then adding new task orders to it that essentially created an IDIQ or a personal services contract vehicle. That was a major issue a few years ago. I think one that I have not seen any evidence of late. I have not seen the ones that Commissioner Berry is talking about where the policy threshold is 50K, as Wes said. But the discussion threshold, what was decided upon and agreed upon on this dais, was 25 grand. So if we have any that have not met that, or that have been approved without coming before us, Madam Administrator, I'd want to see a list of those and have a discussion about that. While it wasn't codified in policy, it was clearly the intent of this board, and we can and do hold staff accountable for those things. So definitely want to see that, but again, if you lower it down to the point where every change order, the reality is change orders are going to happen on just about every contract of any size anyway. And if we lower that down to 25 grand or to zero, we are going to slow down the pace of business, and therefore we will increase the cost of business, and there's a great detriment to doing that.
Well, we've actually automated everything, and so it's electronic. And so we're more than happy to copy you on every single purchase order, change order. It's all electronic. You can see everything we're doing.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably the smart solution, is, as you've said, you make all that information transparent. At any time, any of the five of us can put something on the agenda, or even without putting it on the agenda. The other four have always been very open to taking advantage of this opportunity to speak publicly about things. So, I look forward to actually codifying in law if we want to make 25K permanent, or so be it. But going anything further than that, you're really going to slow down the pace of business and therefore increase the cost of business.
And just board direction, do we want, I think our current, what we currently voted on, or current, what we've been operating under, it was 25,000, and then it was anything for IT. Do we want to make it 25,000 across the board and not continue to operate IT at that lower level?
From my perspective, I see no reason to keep the IT, to treat IT differently than the others.
Okay, Commissioner Bergosh?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Berry. I'm a stickler for rules, and I think if we don't follow the rules all the time, to the best of our ability, occasionally, there's going to have those things that happen. But if you see it and it's not corrected, and then it happens again, that's when it really gets my attention. So, when it comes to change orders, the scenario that Commissioner Berry mentioned about, two small firms bidding for a project, and one of them figures out I can lowball it, and then on the backside I'll do a change order and make my money there, and then the other guy maybe isn't as sophisticated or savvy and loses out. And I think when you see patterns like that happen, and you've got the same people winning the bids, that's a real indication that something could be happening. So I'll strongly support Commissioner Berry on this one. We need to tighten it up. And with respect to the change orders, I like the idea of, especially on maybe any project over 25 or 50 grand, it could be onerous, but perhaps a spot on our website. And here's the project, and then here's the history. Okay, here's a change order. But importantly, the change orders, I want to see which ones are the owner's request, our request, and which ones were generated by the contractor. That way, Stephen, you can connect the dots on the $50,000 bid that turned into a $63,000 bid with the contractor's change order, right? And if we do that, is that something we can do? I think we would all like to see it. Then we can peruse it, we can spot check it, more eyes on it, and more ability, and really more. I just think it would lend itself to the rule being followed with much more fidelity. So, wherever this goes, I'm going to support it. The only thing I would say, Stephen, is when you check that. I mean, obviously we've been under a state of emergency for a while. I'm not going to excuse anything or anything like that, but I think we just need to be very careful that that wasn't something that was actually authorized by the board under the state of emergency. Did that predate Hurricane Sally? I'm sure it didn't predate Ivan.
I mean, I wouldn't think it predated it, but.
Okay, so it did not. So had this happened after Hurricane Sally? Because we did authorize the administrator additional expanding.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that this latitude would have been granted through the emergency order.
Okay, all right. Well, like I say, I just want to make sure, that we're on the right path. But I do support what you're saying. I look forward to the solutions that Cassie and her team bring, and I'll be interested in the discussion. But I would like to see the change orders, and owners' change orders versus contractors' change orders, right? And if you identify those, that's important, because sometimes a project manager will go in after the fact and say, well, gosh, we really should have added this, 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 and this, and it changes the whole thing, and maybe the other bidders got boxed out. That happens.
And Jill, and I can concur. I mean, transparency, that's the problem. No different than the Beach Haven deal when you got a $10 million deal with one bidder, when you're having a discussion on a dais, or you're approving, a $12 million change order, for Road Inc. So it needs to be, whether it's 25,000 or 10 million. If I was a layperson looking, that, there was a contractor that gets a 10 million with no bid, he has, 22 million on a $12 million change order. We better make sure that we have put all the scrutiny on it that we can possibly can, because if I'm going to have the responsibility, I'm going to have the authority. I'm not going to have responsibility and someone else makes a decision that determines my fate. So it doesn't matter. Ultimately, I'm responsible for Monarch. No matter what error staff made, those citizens at Monarch are looking at me today. And that's the bottom line. So I concur with you, Commissioner Beer.
Okay, Madam Administrator, when's the new purchasing director start?
May 6th.
May 6th, okay. I guess that'll be,
I move the item.
Second.
There's a motion, second. All right, any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Item 14, who wanted to hold this one? The Waste Services. Debris, sorry,
Number
debris
14.
monitor.
Yeah,
Debris
Pat.
monitor.
Just a quick question. And I saw the ratings and the rankings, and I know as we looked at some of the change orders and some of the debris and toward the end of the monitoring and getting things clean, were you satisfied with the job performance in the last storm from Thompson?
Yes, sir, I was.
And we ranked them not just based on their pay, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that's kind of the standard practice?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, that's fine.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, while we're talking about this topic of waste debris hauling, Madam Administrator, we've put out a significant amount of money, and it's my understanding we have not received a dime from FEMA as of yet. Not one dime. Towards 60, what's the number now, 66? 60?
I had Liz pull the numbers yesterday. We're at 60.3 or 5 on debris.
That's out of our,
But I believe the good news is that 60 million, though, is less than the 75 million that we originally projected. That's the only good news.
how much more, is that going to grow, Liz? Is there more coming?
So all of our debris projects are done except for one. We have a marine debris one that we are working out with the city. There's 3 sunken boats that we're trying to determine who's going to remove those boats. And then Vista Park. That's the only debris that we have left. The total right now for contract debris removal, we're at about 60.7 million. We've submitted 44 million of that back in November that we're working through, and then the rest of it will be submitted by the end of the week, next week.
Okay. Two-part question. So 60.7 plus whatever these derelict boats and the other things. Bay County, Holmes County, Washington County, they got hit by Hurricane Michael a couple years back. Are they in a similar predicament? Please tell me that you've...
She's contacted them recently.
Okay, how much did they spend and how much have they got? Because it's a real problem, and with all this money being printed, right? Why are we not being paid? And I know it's not your fault. I think we need to, every single one of us needs to be pressing every button that we can in terms of calling our senators, our congressmen. We need to get this money back to Escambia County. This is Escambia County taxpayer money.
Yeah.
That we're entitled to a reimbursement. And we've got not one thin dime out of $60 million. That hurricane happened last September. So Bay County, Holmes County, Washington County, nothing. We've got nothing.
Yeah, so tell them how much Bay County's.
So Bay County, just on debris alone, was 75 million.
And how much have they collected?
They have been reimbursed for the entire hurricane about 78%. So
They're doing better. How long did it
doing
take them to get the federal share? Because that's the lion's share.
A while.
I mean, a while.
2.5 years.
Was it recently that they got the?
I think they did just get it recently. So I'll say this, the Madam Administrator and I did meet with Senator Scott's office. They had a new
District 8.
leader, not District 8, but Sierra was there, but someone else.
Oh, the Florida director.
Florida director. And so we did, that was one of the items we discussed and asked for their help on it. Also on the Vista Park thing, we are wrapping that up. They're 99% finished on that project, so that's roughly completed, but.
So I just want to talk about that because to me, that's a lot of money as we're going into hurricane season right now. I mean, just imagine the nightmare if we were to be hit by another one and require the same amount of money.
Also, tell them how much we'll be getting for our debris removal. How much we've submitted for the Public Works debris removal.
So for us, Public Works did about 1.3 million, and that paperwork is sitting over there with FEMA as well. And then Parks and Rec did about 36,000, and that's sitting over. So right now, we have submitted to FEMA, that's in FEMA's hand, about $63.5 million that they're reviewing. And then we did do a lot of self-cert projects, which is just smaller in size, but requires less documentation to get through the process. So once we get the big debris stuff through, we'll start just trying to submit that as quickly as possible.
And thank you for your dedicated effort. I see your emails all the time, and everyone speaks very highly of you. So thank you for your hard work on this. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Underhill?
Thank you. So hurricane season starts in about 6 weeks. It's my understanding that our our emergency funds are depleted. Is that still correct? Okay. This depleted as in gone.
I'm not 100%
No,
sure.
you don't need to answer
Yeah,
that.
I don't
We'll
know the answer
if
to that.
Amber wants to.
Yeah, Amber,
delve into
could
that.
you come on up?
So we
Because
did-
the reason I bring this up is that, obviously we're entitled to this money. We need this money to come back as quickly as possible. But the reality is that we should not, I mean, if this was my personal finances, I would not be betting this come in time for June 1st.
Correct. And
Now, the hurricane season is supposed to be, they're saying 8 hurricanes, 17 named storms. It's funny, they always say abnormally active every single year. They never say an abnormally inactive. So in fact, we should expect a normal hurricane season, 8 hurricanes, 17 named storms. The math is never good for us for hurricane season. So we should assume on June 1st that we're in that risk zone. What is our financial condition to be able to take a Hurricane Sally hit if it happened on June 1st?
So the first question was our reserves, right?
Mhm.
We budgeted 17.5 million in our reserve for contingency, which is intended to fund our 12.5% share of any storm. We have moved 10 million of that to date. So there is 7.5 million still sitting there. But that could quickly be drained, and we still have a bill remaining on Sally to fund. We did meet with our financial advisor last week.
To be clear, that's not the only reserves, though. That's our operating reserves that are conditional reserves for the year. That's not representative of the reserves and the fund balance for the county.
That's correct.
I mean, if you're trying to pair a question to our ability, would we be able to fund $60 million currently? Yes, we would, Commissioner. Look at the audit. We would be able to.
Commissioner, I'm asking the staff questions. I don't
Well,
need you
the
to jump
staff
in
is-
on it because I'm very familiar with the process.
I'm not sure about that because we've discussed it many times, so I do question that familiarity with it.
That's the purpose for this fund. We're going into hurricane season, and this fund is underfunded. Yes, we can always rob from Peter to pay Paul, or using your term, we can always internally cash flow. But
There
robbing
are
from Peter to
funds.
pay
They're not-
Paul
it's
is
not
not
Peter to
good
Paul.
fiscal policy.
The fiscal policy is $100 million better than it was 8 years ago. I'm not going to sit here and allow you to say that we're not in good financial
You're
shape.
going to allow me to say whatever I want to
Look
say,
at
and
our
you're going to
audit.
say whatever you want to say, Mr. Commissioner.
Not without responding.
Well,
not
you can respond on
passively.
your time. Mr. Chairman, if I may complete my questions with the staff member?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Amber, if you would please continue. So we're supposed to, in an ideal situation, we'd have $17 million in that fund going into hurricane season. Currently, we're 6 weeks away, and we do not have $17 million in that fund. We have 7,
7.5, yes.
7.5, and we have continued expenses that may come out of that fund between now and June 1st. Is that correct?
There is a potential for that, yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that information. I appreciate it. So to you or Madam Administrator, whichever wishes to answer, what then is the plan if we were to, in fact, have a hurricane occur early in the season? Where would the funding come from?
Okay, and I think that's where she was going.
That's where we were going.
We met with our financial advisors last week.
There you go.
Talked
Thank
about
you
our-
very much.
our
If you would please
financial
answer that question.
Yes, our financial
Yes, we met
standing.
with our financial advisor last week. They took a look at what our bond rating is, what our financial position is from a debt and cash standpoint, and whether or not we should consider issuing general obligation debt to fund Hurricane Sally. It does not make sense at this point in time. It is not recommended. Those are options we can consider if we had another hurricane, but at this time, it is not the best avenue to pursue.
Okay, no, good, and I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that it's not so bad that we have to borrow money for the next storm. That is very good news, and that's actually the news that I was trying to get to. So, since that is not the solution, then again, we go back to the question of, assuming that we have a Hurricane Sally level event this year, what is our contingency plan to fund that?
We would have to, again, pursue conversations with our financial advisor. Cash position would allow us to get through it enough time to meet with them and build out that strategy, but of course, it's storm dependent. So,
Okay. Well, and obviously, as we're trying to plan for the future, everything's dependent upon everything. But the reality is that a Hurricane Sally level event is very much a possibility in 2021. It's a likelihood or probability sometime over the next 6, 7, 10 years, whatever. So that's why we plan going into the future. So if I'm understanding properly, then while we're not in a position to have to borrow money now for storm mitigation, if we were to take another hit like Sally, we would in fact have to borrow money.
We would have to strongly
explore.
consider.
We would have
and
to strongly
explore.
consider borrowing money. And we, as a county, are in a position to be able to borrow the money necessary to meet those requirements.
that is correct
We're
at this
double
time.
A. Mhm.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the time.
Commissioner Berry?
Amber, if you don't mind. So, and I wasn't necessarily prepared for this discussion this morning, but happy to have it just from memory. and may not remember the numbers exactly, but based out of our audit that we, got back recently, what was the increase just to the general fund position for this one most recent fiscal year?
I'm going completely off memory. I believe it was around 30 million, which
Around 30
24 million
million.
of which was from CARES.
I understand, but it was 30 million. It was a little bit over $30 million increase to
Correct.
the general fund balance just in the last fiscal year. The truth is, if we had another Hurricane Sally, we would be able to fund the operations without borrowing money. We would be able to. The operation, I understand what you're saying, the 17 million, but that's in addition to what's the backside reserves that are there. Is it 35 or 40?
Are you asking, which in general fund reserves?
Yes.
The total fund balance, I remember it being somewhere in the high 70 millions,
Okay.
close to 80 million.
Yeah, so outside of the 17, which you're saying 10 of it's been moved, there still exists another 50 or 60. And just as a point of reference to my colleague to my left, my closest colleague to my left, those numbers were 16, 17 million 8 years ago. Not exaggerating to any degree. So the financial position of the county is, and Madam Clerk has only served with, she came with Commissioner May and I, so I don't know about her ability to go historically, prior to her service, but I would dare say the financial position of the county currently is the strongest that it has ever been. I think that's an accurate statement. And that's where, Commissioner Underhill, I'm not going to allow you to say that things are not taken care of, that we are not in good financial shape, without responding that we're in better financial shape than this county has ever been in. And that is a testament to what has happened on this dais the last 8 years.
Commissioner, I look forward to continuing to have this discussion with you. I continue to disagree that the condition of this county financially is good, because we are funding so much of our balanced budget on deferred maintenance. Now, that does not in any way impugn your period of service here, and certainly if it's better than it was 8 years ago, which I totally agree with you on, that does not mean that that it is good. It is much better than it was 8 years ago when you got started here, and apparently that's an important part of this discussion for you. But I'm not looking at 8 years ago. I'm looking at where we will be when my sons are taxpayers in this county. And in my opinion, this, which I recognize is different than your opinion,
but
we are not in good financial condition in this county.
You have said the same thing for your entire period of service, for all 6 years you've been on the board.
Thank you for noting my consistency, sir.
You have said the same thing, yet the financial position of the county has bettered every year. Because when we look at the budget, you see red numbers because of the way the government does budgeting, and you say this, and you say this, and you say this, repetitively for your entire period of service, yet every year there's a positive to the financial position of the county. We have yet to experience a year that left the county in worse financial position than the one before, even though every budget discussion we have has you saying it's, fear and uncertainty and doubt abounds. That's my point.
Well, it's not about fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's about potholes in our roads. It's about bridges that are not properly repaired. It's about stormwater systems in our county that simply don't work. It's easy to balance your budget if you don't pay the rent.
Liz? Yes. And Jeff, talking to your Commissioner Bergosh earlier about FEMA, I would say our concern is that the, let's call it floodgates, have opened as to what is applicable or eligible for FEMA expenses, given the last expenses over the last year. And Liz, I know we've just had a few other things that have come up with our FEMA representative changing and things like that. Anything you want to talk about in the process that either you need our help on, or highlight anything that's, recap what's gone on these last few months? Because I shared Commissioner Bergosh's statements and of course how highly everyone speaks of you and the job you're doing. But of course we do need to find a way to make sure that we get those dollars pulled down. As I said, the administrator and I talked with Senator Scott's staff we can continue to reach out to Senator Rubio's staff and everything like that if we need to. But just what do you think the holdup is other than them paying it? Or, I mean, is it that time yet for us to make the push for the money, or do we still need to get some approvals and things like that before we do that?
So that's a great question. So the $44 million in debris contract we submitted back in late November, early December. The good news is FEMA has gotten their first review through. I mean, as you can imagine, the amount of documentation we had to upload for that, pictures of every single tree we cut with a measuring tape to make sure it fit the requirements. And so they've made their first pass. Last week, they sent us a request for some additional information. There were some photos missing from some load tickets. We were able to provide all of that yesterday. So hopefully at this point, all they'll have to do is review the additional information for that $44 million, which was not a ton, and then they'll be able to push it through. What we don't know is for the COVID FEMA that we submitted back in July, that was almost $400,000. That's been sitting in what they say their lawyer's office or desk to be stamped off and approved now for months. So once FEMA approves it, I don't know what happens after. Where is it going to sit after that? So
Okay.
that's when the push really needs to come in. Once we know FEMA has passed that off the review process, then it's going to be sitting in some.
How much of our money has gone to that stage of the 44 million? All of it?
None of it.
No, just the 400 for the.
So FEMA
Let's see if we
is-
can get
is
our
the pinch point.
400,000.
Yeah,
FEMA
so
is the pinch point,
the
yeah.
COVID FEMA, the 400,000 that we submitted for that has been sitting beyond that point for
But that's,
months.
I get it, that's a
It's
lot of money.
pennies. I know.
But when we're talking about 44 million that's on FEMA's desk, I'd rather get that one moving,
Yes,
right?
so
Right.
that one, like I said, they made their first pass, they sent the request for information, we provided it yesterday.
Uh-huh.
So the reviewer should just have to go and review the additional information they requested, and then it should move beyond that point. Once it moves beyond that point, that's when I feel like you guys can really come into play to push it through.
Well, whatever you need from us, please just, by
Yeah.
all means, tell us.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Any further discussion on item 14? Did we vote? No, we don't have a vote yet.
Move the item in the affirmative.
Second?
Please vote.
Now we're on 16.
Motion passes 5-0. Item 16.
Mr. Chairman, we discussed this at length at the Committee of the Whole. I asked for it to be held for a separate vote so that I can vote against for the exact same reasons that we discussed at the Committee of the Whole. Their furlough policy, in effect, very unfairly hit the lower income workers, and the higher income workers did not even so much as take a haircut, really, in my opinion. That does not reflect the values of Escambia County, and since the tax-paying businesses that actually create this money, they took haircuts at the owner level, big time. And I go to restaurants and I see the owners bussing tables. So I just can't see giving the Bay Center additional funds when, in fact, I think that they could have managed it had they been willing to all pull on the oars as hard as our local businesses did. So I'll be voting against if this recommendation is to provide additional funding for the Bay Center.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any speakers, Mr. Chairman?
No, sir, we
Move
don't.
the
Mr.
item in.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Jeff, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Were you going to make a motion? Because
I was going to ask a question.
All right.
And I don't know, Wesley or Amber, somebody that's dealing with Bay Center. I don't know whoever's the chief negotiator. One of the reasons I supported it, Jeff, on this motion is because of my concern for those constituents that I represent that walk to work and ride the bus to work. And it's a valid point what Commissioner Underhill says. And so my question, Amber, did they just furlough the low-wage workers, or was it across the board?
So it's event-based. They did furlough the lower of the full-time staff, the higher-ranking staff per the table that was shared at the last meeting. The higher-ranking staff was not furloughed as much. I believe
Yes,
some
but
of
did
that.
the high-ranking executives, the top-paid people, did they take a haircut in percentage-wise, just like the lowest person?
Not according to the
Well,
table that we saw.
that becomes a
They-
little problem.
they
That's not
did-
what was told to me, and if they didn't do it, that's problematic.
They did take PTO, so I believe that through their countrywide policies, they allowed their executives to take PTO.
That's,
So
I
they
don't care
weren't-
what, we're talking about the local executive, right? I mean, I don't really care what somebody did in New York. I do care what happened in Escambia County.
But your ushers, your concession stand assistants, those folks only worked event-based activities.
But of
So-
their full-time employee, and I get that
Correct.
there are some seasonal and some ushers and some cheerleading squads that work the concession.
Right.
I'm saying of their staff, you know, the lower income, the person that's wiping the toilet, did proportionately, did the executives get reduced the same amount as them? Well,
I would not say the same amount.
I
would-
don't care about the same
yeah.
amount, obviously, I mean, I know
Yeah,
it
but
would be,
they
but
did-
percentage-wise is my concern.
We
But
would
I'm
not-
saying-
we don't
saying
have any way
dollar
to
amount,
know
but
the
I mean,
percentage.
And the reason and Jeff, the reason I say this is because I said if you need an extra $50,000 to keep, Lil Lucy and Jimbo working,
Tell us.
just
Okay,
tell
we
us and
can
I'll
ask.
give it. But I mean, I'm not giving it, just to get, lay people off. I mean, it is, like you said, with this, and I agree with you on all this stimulus stuff. But the point is, if a person becomes unemployed, low income, they become more of a liability on our tax base than anything else. I mean, and so that's.
If I could-
I mean, I don't.
If I could weigh in on that.
And that was, and I think I clearly articulated that at the committee of the whole, and I was led to believe that that's the way it is. And if it's not, and I'm not denying, I'm just asking staff, if it's not, then it just becomes very, 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 very problematic for me.
No,
to
I
support
don't
this.
disagree with you, Commissioner May, but I would say they did provide a chart. Everyone at one point or another was furloughed. Even Cindy herself was furloughed down to 50%. So I would simply say, and I'm not, look, I'm not in their business.
Neither am I. All I'm concerned about is the people that I know that go to work there, and if we're gonna provide, I'm open, I'll support it. I'll give another $50,000 if it keeps somebody employed and not on Medicaid and not in
Well, I'm
in
going
the
to suggest,
SIP line.
that you have that conversation offline with her and find that out, because, I would also say this, if a lot of those folks who, were the lower paid help, I mean, and the janitors, the
Who are
folks that
valuable to me. I mean,
Yeah,
our
no, no,
custodian here are very valuable to me.
Yeah, they're all-
I want a clean bathroom when I go
and they've
upstairs.
struggled through this pandemic. But I would simply say that if they weren't having the events, I believe they had something like 93 events in the COVID year, when typically they have 400. They don't need as much of the service, so they obviously couldn't get the Paycheck Protection Plan, so they couldn't pay the janitor necessarily to be there if they didn't have a need to clean the bathroom. And I'm just speaking in generalizations, but those in particular employees, and I think another valid question to ask, probably did benefit from the $600 a week federal unemployment, the stimulus checks that came out. I mean, there were probably, whereas the higher paid folks would not have. But, again, I don't want to make this into a class warfare issue.
No, and I'm not, Jeff, and I know.
There are programs for those lower paid employees who sadly, unfortunately, were furloughed. And I'm certain that they took advantage of those. But I would simply say this, Lumen, if you go and you speak.
But I prefer them not to be on those
Amen.
programs.
Well, me too.
Yeah.
But it's all a moot point, because it's all coming from the trillions of nowhere money that's being printed, right? That's where this is all coming from. But I would say this.
I tell you, if you lay off a low-wage worker, it'd be better to lay off a high-wage worker, because it's going to be hard to get a low-wage worker back.
Well, I don't disagree, and I think that's
a lot more money.
You do.
Well, and I would say that you are not wrong on that, but I would also say this, they've kept them for the hours that they could, and I see those employees coming back, right, under this plan, many of them, maybe not to the level of 100%, but it's slowly coming back as the activity picks up. But I would say this, Lumen, if you speak to Cindy and Michael Capps over there and figure out what it would take to make sure that everyone's whole, if it's not that much more money, because we're doing minimums here, $250 is the minimum to keep them going, and they did. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. She stood right there and said, this is still gonna require some furloughs. So if you independently bring that, you'll find my support. I mean, I wanna help people to the extent that I can, but I don't wanna jump into someone's business practice not knowing, I'm not gonna hire the guy to do the French fries if no one's ordering French fries, right? just
Right.
to have them stand there by the fryer, hoping someone orders French
No,
fries.
I understand that, Jeff.
But you got to have a boss there, right? You got to have someone who has the keys and the ability to make decisions. So, you know, no one likes all the
But if I'm not
layouts.
doing an event, I'm not gonna have a marketing person, I'm not gonna have the web designer.
Absolutely.
I'm not gonna have 15 layers of administration.
But getting back to your main point, I don't disagree with you. I would simply say some of those folks were taken care of in other ways. And if you find an amount that's needed to keep them at a higher level, bring it back. We'll put it, same thing, we'll put it from the TDC with the stipulation that it be replenished with rescue plan funds. But to move this forward, I think is important. We've got to keep this Bay Center open. We've got graduations coming. We've got a bunch of community events. You know, part of it was, you know, let's be very honest. We were holding them at 50%. You know, they felt as if we were holding them at 50% where other places are 100%. So I'm holding someone underwater and then asking why they can't breathe. We've got to do the right thing here. I think we need to support the Bay Center and then bring that proposal back, Lumen, and you'll find my support.
And Jeff, I'm not opposing where you and Robert are going with this. I mean,
I haven't said anything.
Oh, okay, so, okay, I mean, so, well, I'm not trying to hold all that. When, at the committee of the whole, I asked a specific question. You know, will it be equally, furloughed, you know, from top to bottom? And are we gonna make sure those low-wage earners get a job?
They said no.
They said no.
Commissioner May, I will interject. The one thing I do know that I would share with you is, I believe her name's Sue Ann. She's their senior finance person. I believe she was truly furloughed. We have had such difficult time having finance conversations and getting reconciled bank statements because of her absence. And I believe she's furloughed through May 3rd. I do not believe their top management was furloughed, but may have been allowed PTO. I'm trying to remember the chart because it had
That's
them
not right, Madam Clerk.
working at,
they
I'm
do
just trying to remember a chart that had them
Yeah, I
working
remember
at
the chart. She took
100%.
50%.
They are, for the month of April, every employee is under 50%.
Correct.
April,
For
maybe
April.
so.
I know.
Yes,
Listen,
maybe April. I'm
but-
just telling you, in
right.
the past, the one person I knew about, and I did want to chime in and let you know that I knew she was furloughed.
Yes.
Oh, and Jeff, I'm very supportive of the Bay Center, and you know that, and been very supportive of, you know, the operations and understanding, and we got to supplement that. I was simply asking a question to our staff for the analysis, because I got the chart, and let me just tell you, reading through all that backup and all those pages, I mean, that's why we pay Amber. I mean, I'm not trying to figure it out. I want staff to tell me and guide me. I mean, I'm not trying to figure out anybody's job other than mine. And as a policymaker and a commissioner, my job is to take care of the people. I want Amber to look into, you know, where those low-wage earners, I mean, where they're furloughed, and what do we need to do to try to keep them working? And I don't want to keep talking, Jeff. I know you make the motion. We're good.
All right, Jeff, you have a motion?
Did I make it already?
You were- yeah,
Okay.
you didn't make
I move the item in the affirmative.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Please vote.
But Lumen, after this,
Commissioner May, if you could, you got it? We're good? Okay. All right, motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner Underhill in dissent.
but I'm serious about that though, Lumen. If you speak with Cindy and Michael and they have a plan and they have some work that they can have these, I mean, if you're the janitor, but you know, there's no event, but I can have you go paint or do some maintenance around, you bring something and you'll find my support. Because I mean, we're printing trillions of dollars. We're giving $3,000 checks to people. If there's something that can be done at the Bay Center to help those folks, you'll find my support.
Thanks, Jeff. I mean, not a problem. I mean, I'd rather make people work than give them money. You're not helping anybody giving them $3,000 on a one-time injection. I mean, we need people working.
All right. Anything else for the good of the whole? Good. All right. Adjourn.